much for joining us here today. Today we have with us Mr. Rishi Srivastava, the Director of Sales and Strategy at Exotel. Rishi has been in the industry for over a decade now and has been associated with multiple companies like Vodafone and Airtel prior to Exotel. Rishi, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thanks, Supriya, for hosting this.
Thank you. So, Rishi, like we discussed, technology is a very important component when it comes to the scalability aspect of startups. So, what are your views on some of the critical challenges that startups face when scaling their technology, and how can they be addressed?
So the key challenges in today's world is the security, and the way the regulations differ in country to country, the way we do the business. Those are the key technological challenges, I would say. And of course, the regulations play a major role. In India, something may be different than what is in Southeast Asia. So we need to be clear about it. And one of the foremost priority for all the organizations is security. Security stands very important, and it may require means it may have a personal privacy law or something related to very standard nominations of the companies or the nomenclatures, what we need to be clear upon. And as the things happen, as the companies expand, they need to be more clearer, because once the revenue starts occurring, everybody has a eye on it. The regulators do a lot of things, and they do try to see what is there and what is not.
That was a great point, Rishi. And like you said, when it comes to startups, expansion, growth, and change is the only constant that they get to experience.
Correct.
So our technology infrastructure should be like good enough to accommodate to these changes. So in your experience, what are some of the best practices to build a scalable technology infrastructure?
So the best the best practices, I would say, is one, we should be very much variable. I would say we should be ready to the changes, and we should not have something in the scalability. Okay, should not be taken into consideration for a period beyond 3 years or 5 years on which we are scaling it up. And the technology should be susceptible for 3 years changes or at a max 5 years changes, because there might be a lot of things which may occur which we don't know as on date. And another thing is we should try to follow the best practices across in our industry. So suppose a startup is about flying cars in India, say. So we should study the global best practices, what are there across in the developed nation or a developing nation or an underdeveloped nation as per the demographics, and try to implicate the same things across here. Because see, the practices and the global data would help us to scale it up in a right direction. And it is very important that we don't think too much about the futuristic, because something which goes beyond 5 years, it is we can't predict that, because things might change very much in the days to come. And another thing is, while we are doing the global practices, we are doing the best standards and the best practices we are following up. One thing we should also see, what is the customer segment we are serving across. The scalability should be enough to predict the changes there, because the nuance or the customers whom we are serving today will differ from day to day. Today we might be targeting somebody, children, or tomorrow we might target the adults. And sometime during these period, our users will also change their ages and they also grow. So these things needs to be very clear how we
True.
want to do about it.
Absolutely. You're right there, Rishi, on users changing. And one more thing that has changed, I mean, that is on the customer side. The one more thing that has changed is from the manual sort of, intervention thing, it's all moving towards automation now.
Automation.
So
Correct.
while we are on the topic of change, I thought I'll bring it up. So how can automation sort of help with the efficiency of a scalability aspect of a technology?
So on the scalable aspect of technology, anything which is repetitive, which means where there is nothing a human being or a person means learns. Anything, suppose I make a bill copy based on a BOQ. So these things can be easily automated, which are repetitive in nature should be automated. Another point is where we can save a lot of energy. Today, the efficiency is more about energy, and it's a scarce resource across. We need to see how we can automate it to the best optimum uses. So, for example, we need to automate, we need not follow the generic electricity norms. We should try to automate, we should try to migrate to data centers. If we are not capable of doing it internally, it will not even means it. These are the niche skills which the data center experts are better equipped with. So there, let them do that, and we should concentrate on what we do the best. And there, the automation can come into place. Then there are a lot of other things within the processes. Those processes which are not creating any hindrance can also be automated, because wherever there is no IQ applied should be automated, because it makes you more efficient, and you can always attain what you want the optimum numbers to be. And the PNL is very important as on date.
So there are a lot of metrics now that startups have deployed a certain technology. There are a lot of metrics that point out towards the success of the technology. So how can these metrics be used to drive continuous improvement of the technology infrastructure that has been deployed?
So certain metrics is what we do, what we practice. One is always people speak about a PNL or a financial metrics, but we should look beyond it. We should have the best practices as a metrics, which is viable in the industry, because this will serve us in a long-term period. The PNL metrics, if we people do focus a lot on it, but it is a aspect or a marketing stats, that if we can integrate it somewhere, those metrics will give us long-term results, and it will help us in successful and make a organization a better.
A great point again, Rishi. So you mentioned consumers, right? So of late, consumers, the one thing that they have been very aware of is data. So there's a lot of data privacy and compliance that startups need to take care of. So in your experience, what is sort of the best, method to build a compliant and secure sort of platform when it comes to startups?
So I'll take this question with respect to Indian geographical limits. The most important thing what a startup should do is work with the regulators since beginning, because if we keep it too regulatory to decide what is your future, that's not the right way. We should go hand in hand with them and start working on the regulations right from day one. So we will know what is going to happen in our industry, what is the next scheme of things, what is the rules, indices going to be, and when the regulators will follow, means in line with you, they will also do something to make best practices available and to support the industry. Because if we look in any law, if we go to any law-making organization, the law-making organization always supports the needy or the most, not the most powerful, but the weakest section. So since we will be beginning it from there, we are the innovators in that field. So of course they will support us the most if we work together. Secondly, how we can work together is that we need to bring in the best industry practice across from the global standards, because the regulations are much more stricter across in various other parts of the world, and those best practices will someday or the other day will fall in place in India as well. So even the regulators will refer to them only. So if everything goes hand in hand, then you are creating a win-win situation for everyone. Those things should be in place. For example, if in India we are operating today and we are expanding it to global locations such as Europe, where the privacy law stands in like anything. They are means I will say it cannot be even 1920. It has to be 20 by 20. So the GDPR compliance can be done beforehand, before you go and operate in those countries. So this will save you a lot of things, means a lot of money, which might happen to be once you start operations, then you try to be GDPR compliant. It cannot be. And another thing, while you are working with the MNCs also in a B2B market, suppose in India, and those are also their geographical headquarters are in Europe. So again, those things needs to be kept in mind, because they will anyway enforce you to sign GDPR while working with them, though in India, but still. That is very important.
Once again, great points mentioned there, Rishi. So would you like to share something that I may have missed out on asking on?
What should be the key thing what startup should focus on? I think, and the right thing is, startup should focus on what they do the best, apart from all the things what I told.
All right. So they should focus on their strength. Great way to, give a perfect ending to a perfect conversation, Rishi. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I'm sure many startups out there who will be watching this will have a lot to gain from this interview. Thank you so much for taking time out for us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Supriya.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.